Let me go to the Blaze Buck Sexton, who joins me now to discuss the latest in Egypt and the Middle East. Hello, Buck.
Good to see you, Glenn.
Good to see you. I am confused on how the president can talk to us about the children, and yet everything that is happening all across the Middle East. We are seeing attacks on the children, we're seeing attacks on the families, but you're either in the wrong Muslim sect, or it's because you're a Christian, or you're an atheist, or something like that. This Glenn, is all being ignored.
It is being ignored. There is a rising tide of Islamism that's much more pernicious, much more evil than anything you're seeing in the news. I want to show you dueling narratives of what's really happening right now in the Middle East. If we call up a map, we can show you that right now, this is the Middle East, broadly speaking. And we know Egypt, there's some problems with the Muslim Brotherhood there. Syria, of course, there's a nasty war. And then, yeah, there's some things going on here. You don't really hear a lot about it. You hear little bits and pieces. We know that there was Dalga in Egypt, this Christian town, where there's now the jizya, the special tax being paid by Christians. But pay no attention to that. It's not part of a broader sectarian Islamist agenda, is it? Well, let's look at a map of groups that have attacked recently, terrorist groups tied to al-Qaeda. Oh, wow. There are groups operating in all of these countries. There are groups operating in Egypt now. Ansar Jerusalem, a suicide attack, Glenn, just a couple of weeks ago that was trying to kill the Minister of the Interior there. We know that al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb is operating. In fact, Mokhtar Belmokhtar, the guy who was involved in that gas facility attack back in January, he just released a little training video, which we can show you over here. Now, Mokhtar has a multi-million-dollar bounty on his head. But, Glenn, he's moving his al-Qaeda fighters across borders. He's not just staying in one place. Okay. There's Mokhtar. He just posted this. They're all over the place. They're now in Tunisia.
Hold on just a second. Before you go on, Buck, I've seen that flag before. In fact, I saw that flag today in the news and on the newspaper where we were talking about how the CIA is now arming the rebels, and that black flag was sitting there.
Yeah, Glenn, that's right. Mokhtar's black flag over here has the same meaning as the black flags that we're seeing in Syria, has the same meaning as the black flags we're seeing in Libya and in Tunisia. Ansar al-Sharia, remember that group that we all know now actually attacked the facility in Benghazi?
Right.
Well, they have their own outpost now in Tunisia, which is supposed to be the quiet, stable North African country. They're also operating freely in Libya. We now have Al-Ghama al-Islamiyah. They're the group that did the Luxor shooting of all those tourists back in the 90s. Guess what? They decided they were going to ally with al-Qaeda a couple of years ago. They haven't gone anywhere. They're still there. There are active terrorist Islamist groups, Glenn, across the entire Islamic crescent of the Middle East, and they are engaged in attacks that are reported, if reported, as a one-off. Oh, where did that come from? This group that you've never heard of just blew up some people. This is the reality. The black flags flying all across here are tied together, Glenn. They're trying to start sectarian war. They only need to win once. Look at Iran in 1979. If they can take control of any of these countries, and we know Libya is tottering, Syria is in full-blown civil war, Egypt is tottering on the brink. Look at these countries. Any one of them falls, and guess what? The whole region could be thrown into tumult. That's the game they're playing.
Okay, so first of all, was the president lying to us last year when he said to us, oh, you know, al-Qaeda, it's on the ropes and we've pretty much decimated it? Was he lying, or is this a new wave because of the Egyptian Arab Spring?
What he was referring to is al-Qaeda in the old al-Qaeda sense, which we could essentially show you over here, al-Qaeda Central, AfPak al-Qaeda. That's where the drone attacks have been so successful. That's where we've seen decreases in leadership. Keep in mind, we got bin Laden, but we still haven't gotten number two, Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is, by the way, a guy who came out of the dungeons of Egypt, who was a Muslim Brotherhood guy, and also now has called for Islamic war, Islamist war in Egypt, civil war there. He's very active. So it's not even like, Glenn, they got rid of all this. All of these groups along here have sworn fealty, bay'ah, to al-Qaeda ideology. It does not matter that they're not getting their orders from bin Laden anymore. The creation of a regional and then global caliphate is the stated goal. That's what they want. That's what they believe in. They don't need to get orders from Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Okay. So what does this mean to me sitting in Dallas, Texas, Buck? What does I look at all these al-Qaeda things, and I think, well, it doesn't matter. What the heck am I going to do about it anyway? What does it mean to me?
It means that we're heading for some very tough times, Glenn. It means that at some point, what's happening here is going to spill over into our world, whether it's in the Suez Canal, which we've talked about before, and where there already have been attempts to shoot at tankers, whether it's taking down an airplane with man-pads, man-portable air defense system, maybe that came out of Libya, by the way. There are any number of scenarios in this part of the world that could come out and could bite us, Glenn, no matter where we are. And the reality of this administration is not only do they not know what to do about this, they're now hampered by the fact that everybody realizes, friend and foe, they have no idea what they're doing. There's no strategy. The moderates, and there are some secular people in these places, of course, there are lots of them, they're scared, and they don't have power, and they can't look to us to hold their hand and help them out. So guess what? This that I'm showing you here, this is a wave sweeping across the region. Mark my words, they want control of a nation state, not just room to operate.
Okay, so let me ask you the next question, which would be, if it's 1939, I'm in Germany and I am a Jew, or, you know, one of the other ones that received a badge when went to the death camps were Bible scholars. If you were a Bible-thumping Christian, you also went to the death camp. I would have gotten out. The Christians in these areas, if you're over there, Buck, is it time to leave?
I think it is, Glenn. I think that in a lot of these countries, you would be better off, if possible, getting out. You mentioned Jews having to wear the gold star because of Nazi rules. Guess what? Under Sharia, for centuries, Christians and Jews in these countries have had to wear special adornments, special badges, special clothing to differentiate themselves from the rest of the population. They've also been ritually humiliated under Sharia in these countries. Now, we thought that democracy, Glenn, would bring secularism and happiness and all kinds of good things. The reality is that the forces of Islamism that were suppressed by autocrats in all of these countries now for decades, the oil kept flowing. It was reasonably quiet for us here and there, not really. Now that's all been unleashed, and we're having to deal with the aftermath. And if you're a Christian, I think you should get out, if you can.
I'm running late, so 30-second answer on this. The idea that Christians are in there, is there a last call? Is there hope here that things get better?
Glenn, I tried to sound the alarm a little bit when I was in government. I was worried about the Christian community in Iraq. And there was a time when you would be laughed at for even raising that notion that the Christian community, oh, Iraq's in the midst of a civil war. Guess what? 1.5 million down to maybe 100, 200,000. We look at the Coptic community in Egypt. They know what's coming. The question is, what can they do about it, and how quickly can they get out? And the other side of this is the Islamists will be happy to see them leave.
Right. And which country is going to take them? What country is going to say, oh, I'll take 1.5 million people from the Middle East if the Middle East is truly on fire? Okay, thank you very much, Buck.